I've spent most of my life convincing myself that what happened out there had a rational explanation. I still can't find one. This happened when I was 29. I'd just gotten out of a long relationship and I was trying to rediscover who I was before responsibilities and routines took over. Hiking had always been my reset button. Silence, distance, no expectations. That October, I planned a 4-day solo backpacking trip into a remote stretch of forest near the border of Tennessee and North Carolina. It wasn't a heavily trafficked section of the Smokies. In fact, once you left the main access trail, you could walk for hours without crossing another person. That was the point. The first day was uneventful. Cool air, orange leaves, quiet wind pushing through the canopy. I made camp about 9 miles in, near a shallow ravine where a creek cut through rock. It was beautiful in a lonely kind of way. That night, I slept fine. The second day is when things shifted. Around late afternoon, I noticed something strange. The woods were quiet, not just peaceful, silent. No birds, no insects. Even the breeze seemed muted. I stopped walking and listened. Nothing. You don't realize how loud a forest normally is until it goes silent. I told myself it was just weather pressure or maybe a predator nearby keeping animals hidden. Logical explanations. Then, I saw the first marking. It was carved into a tree trunk about chest height. 3 vertical slashes, deep, clean, not natural, not random either. They faced the trail. I looked around for more. About 30 yards ahead, another tree had the same 3 marks. Same height, same depth. I felt watched for the first time. I considered turning around. Instead, I kept moving. I wish I hadn't. An hour later, I reached a small clearing I didn't remember seeing on my map. It wasn't large, maybe 30 feet across, but the ground looked disturbed, leaves flattened, soil uneven, like something heavy had been dragged across it repeatedly. In the center of the clearing was a depression in the earth, a shallow hollow, and around that hollow were more trees carved with the same 3 slashes, all facing inward, like they were marking something trapped in the center. I stood there longer than I should have, and that's when I heard it. A slow exhale behind me, close enough to feel the air shift near my neck. I spun around so fast I nearly fell. Nothing, just trees, but the silence was heavier now. I backed out of the clearing slowly and returned to the trail. I didn't run. I didn't want to look like prey. That night, I camped closer to the ridge than I'd planned. I built a small fire and tried to shake the feeling that I had walked into something I wasn't meant to see. Around midnight, I woke up to movement, not far away. Heavy steps, deliberate, circling my campsite. I froze. The footsteps weren't animalistic. They weren't padding or scampering. They were measured, human. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause, slowly orbiting my campsite. I reached for my headlamp but didn't turn it on. The steps stopped directly behind where my head rested. I could hear breathing, not loud, just steady, close. I held my own breath. Then something pressed lightly against the fabric of my tent. A palm, 5 distinct points of pressure. I could see the outline. The fingers were long, too long. They dragged slowly downward, stretching the nylon. I shouted without thinking. The pressure vanished. The footsteps retreated. I burst out of the tent with my light. Nothing. But the forest still hadn't returned to normal sound. I didn't sleep again that night.
At first light, I packed up and started back toward the main trail. That's when I realized I couldn't find it. The path I'd followed for nearly 2 days was gone. The trees looked unfamiliar. The ridge wasn't where it should have been. My compass spun erratically. I checked my GPS. No signal. Battery full, but no connection. Panic started creeping in, slow and cold. Then I saw it again. The clearing. The same hollow in the earth. But this time, something was inside it. A backpack. Mine. The one I had on my shoulders. I looked down at myself. Still there. I looked back at the hollow. The backpack inside was torn open, food scattered, and carved into the soil around it. 3 deep slashes. I didn't approach. I ran. Branches tore at my arms and face. I didn't care about direction anymore. Behind me, I heard something running too, not crashing wildly, keeping pace, matching me step for step. I didn't dare look back. After what felt like hours, I stumbled downhill and burst onto a gravel service road. The moment my boots hit open ground, the forest sounds came back. Birds, wind, life. I turned around. The woods looked normal, peaceful, empty. I drove home without stopping. I reported nothing. What would I say? That the forest rearranged itself? That something marked me? I still hike, but I avoid October. And if I ever see 3 slashes carved into a tree again, I'm turning around immediately. I don't tell this story often because it sounds less like horror and more like insanity. But I know what I saw. 5 years ago, I went on a solo winter hike in a remote section of the Appalachian backcountry. It wasn't extreme terrain, but once snow falls, everything changes. Sound travels differently, visibility shrinks, and isolation becomes absolute. I hiked about 6 miles in before finding a narrow ravine sheltered from wind. The walls rose steep on both sides, giving it a strange and closed feeling. It felt safe. That night, I built a small fire and settled into my tent. Around 1 a.m., I woke up to a crunch. Footsteps in snow. Distinct, slow, moving along the rim of the ravine above me. I grabbed my flashlight and aimed it upward. Nothing. But I heard it again. Crunch, crunch, pacing back and forth, watching. I called out, thinking maybe another hiker was lost. No response. The pacing continued for nearly 20 minutes. Then it stopped. Silence.
I didn't sleep much after that. In the morning, I climbed up to check. No footprints. Fresh snow covered everything untouched, except for one set. Bare footprints, leading to the edge of the ravine, stopping right above my tent. They didn't leave. They just ended. That's when I noticed something worse. Carved into the snow near the edge were 3 vertical lines, deep enough to reach dirt, facing downward, toward me. I packed up fast. As I hiked out, I kept feeling like someone was following. Not chasing, trailing, maintaining distance. Every time I stopped, the forest went silent. Every time I walked, I heard a faint echo of steps behind mine. By late afternoon, the sky darkened with incoming snow. Visibility dropped quickly. That's when I saw him, standing between 2 trees about 40 yards ahead. Tall, thin, bare-chested despite freezing temperatures. His skin looked pale gray. He didn't move, just watched. I froze. Then he tilted his head slightly and smiled. It wasn't wide. It wasn't exaggerated. It was subtle, knowing. I blinked and he was gone. No running sound, no shift in branches, just gone. I didn't stop moving after that. When I reached my car near dusk, I saw something carved into the frost on my windshield. 3 vertical slashes. I hadn't parked near anyone. There were no other vehicles. I scraped it away and drove home. I still dream about that ravine. And in those dreams, I'm always at the bottom, looking up. And someone is standing at the edge, waiting. I worked one summer as a temporary fire lookout in a remote forest in the Pacific Northwest. The tower stood alone on a ridge accessible only by a 5-mile hike. No road, no power, just radio communication once a day. The job was simple: watch for smoke. The first month was quiet. Then I started seeing signals. Not wildfire smoke. 3 short plumes rising from deep forest at dusk. Always in the same pattern. 3 bursts. Pause. 3 bursts. I radioed it in. Rangers investigated. Found nothing. Then the footsteps started. Every night around 2 a.m., someone climbed the metal stairs. Slow, methodical. The steps creaked under weight. They stopped at the trapdoor beneath me and waited. The first time, I assumed a ranger. I called out. No response. Just breathing. After 10 minutes, the steps descended. The next morning, I checked. No footprints in the soft soil. None. The third night, the steps ran up. Fast, violent. The trapdoor handle shook. Not pulled, tested. Then I heard a voice. Soft, calm. Let me in. It sounded like me. Exactly like me. Same tone, same pacing, same breath pattern. I didn't answer. The handle stopped moving. Then 3 loud bangs hit the underside of the trapdoor, evenly spaced. I didn't sleep after that. At sunrise, I opened it. On the metal floor were 3 deep gouges, like claw marks, but too precise. That evening, I saw something worse. Far below in the forest, 3 plumes of smoke, closer than before. The pattern repeated. 3. 3. And then I saw movement in the trees. Someone walking toward the tower. Tall, slow, unhurried. By the time darkness fell, I could hear footsteps on the stairs again, but this time they didn't stop. They kept climbing and climbing and climbing, like there were more stairs than the tower physically had, like something was ascending from deeper than ground level. I grabbed my pack and waited until dawn. The moment light hit the ridge, I descended. I didn't look around. Halfway down, I saw something carved into one of the wooden supports. 3 vertical slashes, fresh, still splintering. I quit that day. The ranger who replaced me lasted 4 nights. He didn't explain why he left,
But when I turned on the news a month later, there had been a small wildfire reported in that same forest. Cause unknown. Patterned burn marks found near the origin point. 3 lines, side by side.